Don't worry, that's Sazerac. Blended whiskey, 40% alcohol, 750 milliliters. It says, hold on. It's just some writing about how wonderful it is. Nothing about ingredients or specific things. So there's no age statement, no blend ratio. Typical Sazerac bottle. Same thing here. No blend ratio statement, no age statement. It just says Legacy Distilling. Company, Louisville, Kentucky. Same place, Louisville. Yeah, buddy, it's Sazerac. They have about 30 alias names. I'm serious. You can go to Walmart and they have Caliber from IWA Distilling Company, Louisville, Kentucky. It just goes on and on. Whatever, Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, so we're going to do Sazerac versus Sazerac the next few days. Is it going to be a challenge? Well, yeah, because I probably won't be able to tell them apart. I have this. What's next? I'm going to close out with Barton, which is not a private label. It is a series of liquors, though, like so many. You got Barton. I have the blended American. But then you have their bourbon, straight bourbon. You've seen Barton 1792. But then that Barton, just standard Barton, you got gin, rum, vodka, so on and so on. Let's see. And that can be from California or Kentucky in that case, or even Chicago. I've seen Barton brands in Chicago. So we got 75 South, Barton, Ancient Age, American Blended. That's from Buffalo Trace in Frankfort, Kentucky. Same company, Sazerac. And there's one more. Can't think of it. Let me go look. Oh yeah, Albertsons. There's a brand they used to make. I don't think it's made anymore. It was called Albertsons. But since Albertsons got to be such a big chain, they wanted to have something they could sell across the chains. So they got rid of the Albertsons, like Albertsons Brandy. And now it's D.W. Anders, which they could sell at Jewel Osco, Safeway, Super Value, Amigos, Albertsons. It tastes suspiciously exactly like what's that brandy that I always make fun of because it tastes so strange? Got a new label now. Hartley. It tastes suspiciously like Hartley VSOP. The D.W. Ambers VSOP. I wonder why that is. So there's your GL, Gran Legacy. Yeah, it's amber, little copper. It wouldn't get that dark even after 4 years in a used barrel because I was watching something from a distillery and they say once you use the barrel the first time, you're not gonna get much color from it because it's all sucked into the whiskey. You know, all the charcoal is sucked into the whiskey from the first run. So these things would be so like the King Square, which is obviously not colored. They'd just be a faint gold, and so they add color and caramel color. They do that to Scotch. They do that Canadian whiskey. They just can't do it with bourbon, straight bourbon. Do it with blended bourbon. So there's the, well, they look the same. No, retraction. I think that I was saying, Okay, so the Grand Legacy is a shade darker. It's more copper, and this is more gold. One shade down toward gold, one shade up toward copper. So there goes my idea that it was the same thing in two separate labels, because they would be the same color, right? Now, if they don't smell the same and taste the same, I'll know it. Now, I kept thinking Grand Legacy has this characteristic, Grand Legacy has that characteristic, and so on. But really, it wasn't any kind of distinguishing characteristic from the other Heaven Hill and Sazerac blended whiskey. So if you want something that's just and like the rest of them, you know, but not bad, just kind of ho-hum, and you only want to pay $10.99 for the big jug bottle, well, there's your answer. Go to CVS Pharmacy and buy the Grand Legacy. But if you're not too picky, you can buy the Caliber Canadian blended at Walmart for $9.96, save $1.03, which was what I would do. I would do that because I think the Canadian blended whiskeys are probably better than the American. That's me, than the American blended whiskeys. Other people would strongly disagree and say, no way, Jose. Canadian whiskeys have those weird flavors added. They do, but I like those weird flavors. American blended whiskey has sherry. If you read the Tax and Trade Bureau website, it says they're allowed to add blending sherry. Doesn't say anything about any other flavoring, though. Like, I could show it to you. I mean, when I'm not the kind of person going to just say, well, look it up. No, I can show you that. They don't mention anything else about any other flavoring, which is interesting. So I'm thinking that the natural flavors in this Grand Legacy is, it doesn't say natural flavors, but I'm thinking it's the blending sherry. So this one smells, you see, when you smell these American blended whiskeys just with a quick whiff, and that's what the company's hoping you'll do, you know, like just smell, it smells like bourbon. When I did the trademark research just now, I was trying to get the dates, 2004 and 2006. It was saying that 75 South is an American bourbon produced for Safeway, which is Albertsons. I said, it's not a bourbon. Could it be, could they have a straight bourbon? Yeah, they might. Or blended, they might. I just haven't seen it. But when you take that quick whiff, it smells like bourbon. Right off the bat, you know, as they say in cricket. You say, whoa, bourbon. Now, if you start digging deep and really micromanaging it, you know what I'm saying? Then you'll say, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe it's only like 20% bourbon and the other 80% is something else. That's right. That's the filler. That's the column still, grain alcohol, the grain neutral spirits, odorless, colorless. Cut with water down to 80 proof and blended with straight bourbon. Could be sour mash bourbon. Could be, I don't know what it is. This stuff's aged at least 4 years, though, both of these. My question always was, and I can't get a clear answer. You might have a clear answer, you the viewer. But sometimes people give me an answer, but they got no way to verify it. They'll just say, oh, I worked in the industry and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, do you have any kind of definitive source material? Because I worked in the industry is not a valid source. Especially when they're using an internet name like Mimi Got, and I don't know who you are. That's not citing a source. But I always wondered, are they? And Canadian whiskey works two different ways. They do it two different ways. But the minimum aging on Canadian, all the components have to be a minimum 3-year age. Same with Scotland. But in the U.S., they don't have that rule for blended whiskey. So is it that they're just taking raw, just produced grain neutral spirits and then mixing them with straight bourbon that was aged for 4 years or more and then bottling it? Is that what they're doing? Now, if you read the U.S. government's regulations on grain neutral spirits, it says what I just described, and then it says has to be stored in wood vessels. Well, if you're storing it, then it's aging, right? You say, but it might only store for a week. Oh, it's aged for a week. Wouldn't make much difference, I'm sure. Or the second question, or are they blending this fresh bourbon with fresh grain spirits and then aging it for 4 years in a wooden vessel? That's what I'm trying to figure out. To me, it tastes like they're taking raw grain alcohol, corn, liquor, moonshine, if you want to call it that, because that's what it is. That's what people go pay a lot of money and buy that stuff. To me, it tastes like they're taking that raw component and just mixing it with aged bourbon and then bottling it, because it tastes kind of raw. It smells raw. Hey, would you say hi to my mom, Helen, for me? It's morning coffee time. I mean, what I say hi, Voltron. Hello, Miss Helen. All right. So this smells like corn. It literally smells like liquid corn. Corn that's been distilled into alcohol with some slight char, slight vanilla, slight wood, slight dried flowers, slight nectar, like you know, the honeysuckle nectar, like you get with bourbon. Okay. Is it remarkable? You know, it's not remarkable for $10.99 a bottle. We're talking about the huge bottle. And oh yeah, you say how much was the 75 South? $5.99. It might have gone up to $6.49. But you know, that's what we're talking about. $6 to $6.50, $6 to $6.50 for that bottle. You say, well, it's pretty cheap, right? We're talking about the bottom. You say, what's cheaper than those? You mean in liquor? There is nothing cheaper. That's it. You go to India, you might get something cheaper, but you'll die if you drink it. You'll go blind and die because it's made from wood alcohol. You know, you hear about this on the news all the time. 50 people at a party in Uganda die after drinking homemade liquor that some dude on the street sold them. Well, why? You know, you don't buy things from dudes on the street and then ingest it. You say, well, I got a man in my neighborhood that makes pralines. Well, that might be okay, but still, I don't know. I mean, if you've been buying pralines, or some people say pralines, for 10 years from the guy, I guess it's all right. But this one doesn't smell as pronounced. This one is more like, yeah, it's corn bread, like nut shell, like pecan shells. Yeah, no, it's not aged in pecan wood or pecan shells. That would be a new beer, right? Get a beer, crush up thousands of pecan shells, let it soak in the beer for a month, and then filter it out. Probably before this video is over, somebody's going to have already sat down on a computer and started coming up with how they're going to do it. So in about a month, you'll see like Bush pecan beer. Pecan shell surprise. Bush pecan shell copper surprise. Whew, picked up a little bit of that antiseptic alcohol underneath. Not really here. So the aroma is very similar. Think of corn grits, Quaker grits. But they're not the same. They're not the same. They're not the same. Not the same. Not the same. Not the same. The price is the same. Forget the price. The price won't matter. The price won't matter. The price won't matter. Boy, it's dark. What's happening to our daytime? Oh yeah, we're getting closer to December. Days are growing shorter. Now, if we didn't have daylight savings time, it'd be daylight right now, because it's only 4:55 in reality, not 5:55. That tastes like just filler. You know what I mean? Is there a little bourbon, vanilla, and oak and charcoal? Yeah, but it's literally like you would expect it is. Now, there's no blend ratio. Could it be 75-25 blends, 25% straight bourbon? Oh, it could be, but you know it isn't. The minimum is 20. The U.S. government has a strict regulation on that. It has to be at least 20% straight whiskey, which is invariably bourbon, but it could be early times, like used in a used barrel, but whatever. It has to be at least 20% straight whiskey. And so it tastes like it's about 20% straight whiskey and about 80% filler. Now, you might say, I don't care what it is. If it's 80 proof and I'm getting lit and I'm mixing it with a knee-high apple soda. Well, I mean, that's what it's designed for, so it wouldn't be anything aberrant. I was talking to somebody said they mix, or their grandpa or their mother mix whiskey with milk. I said, what? Oh yeah, all the time. Glass of milk, put shot or a double, 2 shots of whiskey and drink. I said, well, whatever you like. Now this one over here tastes like more corn filler. That's even starting to get some of that honeydew melon flavor. Uh-oh. Alex DeVere, Master. Good morning, Ron. Hey, Alex. Good morning. Guess what I ate for breakfast? I had a leftover drumstick and a honey butter biscuit from Church's. We got so stuffed yesterday. This guy, Eddie, that works with me, he was like, what do you have? I said, I got this toucan dine for $5. And then I had all this other stuff. I had 5 huge pieces of fried chicken, and they were spicy and fresh. Still hot, couldn't hardly touch them. And then the macaroni and cheese, the spicy rice, whatever that is. I call it mushy rice. Most people, it's like jambalaya, really. It's dirty rice, but they don't know how to keep it from being mushy, But the flavor's good. It's dirty rice, but it's really like a beef jambalaya. But and then I got coleslaw. I ate the coleslaw alone because he barged in saying, what is this? I said, well, you could have half of it. You could have 3 pieces of chicken, macaroni and cheese, rice, and the honey butter biscuit. I said, but it's going to cost you $3.05 because that's half, it was $6.05. And I had to drive over there and get it. So he says, no, $3, that's it. I said, no, I said $3.05. So he walked out. I'm not paying that nickel. I said, okay. But then I said, look how good that chicken looks. Notice the steam coming off it. So I knew somebody sitting by me said, you're going to do that for a nickel? I said, yeah, because I could take it home and eat it later. I said, he'll be back with the money. So he came back in later, about 4 minutes later, and put the money on the table. I said, I knew I'd be able to break you down. And then we couldn't finish it, though. We still had food left over. I said, you don't want the rest? No, it's so filling. They give you pieces of chicken. It's like they give you half a chicken. It's like they must use genetically modified monster chicken from like Dr. Morrow's Island. It's like huge, And I mean, I like Popeye's chicken. It has a good flavor, but the pieces are small. It's like they're using little mini chickens. You say they're using bantams. Yeah, I mean, you eat at Church's, you just cannot, it's so much. I wanted to ask you last time, but it was as the stream was ending. What's your thoughts on church denominations that promote teetotaling? Some did not allow their pastors to drink at all. Oh, that's fine if they want to do that. It doesn't matter to me, but it's really not scriptural. A lot of these, and it's usually Baptists, they'll say, and I ought to know I was Baptist, but they'll say, our ideology comes from the Bible. And I say, yeah, but the Bible doesn't teach that. It talks about not being a wine bibber and a drunk and a drunkard, an alcoholic. Yeah, getting drunk, all that. So that is, no one would dispute that. Me, Catholic now, thank God. But no one's disputing that. But then they do what the Bible says, taking the teachings of men and making them doctrine. I'm paraphrasing, but they're teaching that man's rules. They're teaching it as doctrine, like it's God's rule. But the Bible warns against that. It isn't God's rule. In fact, Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding party, and the people drank the wine. So their teaching is not correct. Now you might say, well, that's just your truth. No, it's not my truth. That is the truth, you see. I don't really entertain those ideas that, well, it's what's true for me. No, that's flim flam. That's, we're reality based on this channel. You know what I'm saying? All that relativism stuff comes from the lodges. That's Masonic teaching. And that is a thread that runs through a modern culture today, you see. They'll say, well, it's true for me. And that goes right along with Freemasonry, because that's what they teach at the lodge. You must believe in a supreme being as you see it. Well, that's a totally meaningless statement. So then they look at the truth as you see it. Of course, their overall truth is based on international revolutionary activity. And that's verified by the study of history, going back to, at a minimum, July 14, 1789. But anyway, so there's your answer. I don't agree with their opinion. I don't care if they have their opinion about not drinking alcohol. But it's a man-made rule. It's not biblical. It's just, they're just making like with most of Protestantism, it's just like you're eating at a cafeteria. You just say, I'll take this and I'll take that. Oh, I don't want that. I don't like those vegetables. You just pick and choose, but it doesn't really go along with the universal church, which is not, it's not, I decide what is real. It's I follow what's real. See, that's the Catholic ideology. Ron the Riot, cheers, says Brewski. RKOXX Connie says 100%. Alex the Beer Master says pretty darn good, Ron. It was good, but I had to eat the overflow for breakfast because it was so, but it was spicy. It was hot, but it wasn't overdone. We had some churches one time. It was like eating straight cayenne pepper. I said the cook must have went berserk. It was really too much. But yesterday was more in line with what the company wants them to put out. I said they really need a mid-range. They should have spicy, moderate, and mild. Because their regular, church's original is just bland. Actually, my mother used to like going to churches. So let's go to churches. And we used to sit outside. The patio's still there, but they took away the tables and the umbrellas. I think because it was too close to the drive-through for Popeyes. Literally, churches and Popeyes are next to each other. And they're always packed. And I used to not like it. I would think, this is so bland, I couldn't stand eating it. And then she would want to get white meat, which is totally bad to me because it's so dry, That's why people want to dip it in everything. It's like eating dryness. But in 2011, when they came out with their spicy, I said, well, I'll give it a try. And I said, oh, yeah, man, this is great. And so I was addicted to it ever since. And then for a while, they test marketed here their jalapeno spice. Boy, that was dynamite. But I guess they decided not to make it. But it was, Yeah, baby. All right. Okay, I can't really tell on these which is which, but I think this is the Grand Legacy, and I'm gonna tell you why. I think the Grand Legacy has more caramel flavor. It's darker. I know caramel color is not supposed to have flavor, but I don't know. It's something about it. It's more like caramel candy, like Werther's original, the caramel one. I don't know. I can't describe it. And it's almost like a nutty flavor. This one over here, it seems like there's too much corn filler and even getting that degraded melon taste like you get with those Heaven Hill monstrosities. So yeah, I think the Grand Legacy is the winner, assuming this is Grand Legacy now. But whatever, I think this one tastes better. Would I recommend it? Well, I mean, yeah, I'd recommend it if you don't like to spend a lot of money and you're not too picky. That's what blended whiskey is made for. People that don't want to spend a lot of money, they're not picky, and they're not going to drink it straight anyway. They're going to mix it with tomato juice or whatever they do, pineapple juice. I mean, you know, people, 1,001 ideas. Yeah, they work perfect for that because you're not going to taste it anyway. You're going to taste a little alcohol on the pineapple juice. So I'm going to say GL, Grand Legacy. Please be GL. It is. It is. All right. I think I'm starting to get a handle on it. You say, well, you got a lot of practicing to do, right? Yeah. I mean, I've got 1,300 milliliters left of practicing. So I probably will be the most expert taster of Grand Legacy in America after this. You know what I'm saying? I'll be able to just smell Grand Legacy and know it's Grand Legacy in about 3 years. So now your counterpoint might be, yeah, but no one cares. No one even cares about Grand Legacy. No one cares about our 75 South whiskey. You know, you do these obscure brands, no one cares about them. And then you're complaining because no one watches. No. Time out. I never complained that people didn't watch. I have a curiosity for these things, so I do the videos. If people didn't watch, I wouldn't take exception to that. I'd say, well, I can understand it. I wouldn't watch either. But now if I did Crown Royal, you know, well, yeah, you'll get a lot of people viewing that because it's the most popular whiskey in the world. And, you know, Johnny Walker Red. Well, I mean, yeah, common sense. Common sense, you're going to get a lot more views when you're doing something people heard of instead of doing something people never heard of. Okay, so let's read the last comments before we close this out. Voltron said, a position paper I read stated alcoholic beverages from the time of the Bible had much lower alcohol content. Probably true. And wine during the time of Christ was more of a sweet fermented juice with lower alcohol. This I don't know. I hear all these theories, but there's a problem with that theory. It doesn't seem to conform with the context of the passage. And I've talked to some really radical, you know, more extreme Protestants like Church of Christ. Hear sirens. They'll just out and out blatantly say, oh, it was grape juice. It wasn't wine. I said, well, why would you say that? But they're not going to entertain the context of the scripture. What does it say in the Bible? It says the guests at the wedding after Jesus turned water into wine, and they didn't know who Jesus was. He was not known at the time. He was obscure. And so all they did, they wanted to drink the wine. They're at a reception. And in the Middle East, a wedding reception doesn't last hours. It might last days, you know. This is like, I know a lady from Germany. She said, oh, no, when they have a wedding, it's just totally out of control. So they said, remember, they tasted the wine because they ran out of wine. Remember, and Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mary, says they ran out of wine. And the people were complaining, we ran out of wine. So you wouldn't dare drink water during the Bible days unless you had a death wish. So no filtration systems, almost guaranteed illness. So Jesus turned these 3 stone, you know, big earthenware. I mean, huge. It's like gallons. I don't know, 50-gallon jugs. You know, we're talking about big, into wine. And so the people tasted the wine. Just read it. It's in the Bible. They tasted it. And what did the wedding guests say? They were I was shocked because it was later at the reception, many hours into the reception. They said, "Oh, look at this wonderful wine." They said it's amazing because usually the host at the wedding, he'll put the choice wine out first, the good stuff. The father, he's paying for the whole thing. The real nice wine might come from Armenia, or it's wine from Tajikistan or somewhere like that. He might have paid $70 a bottle in our money today. So then they say, "Oh, this is really good wine." Now, as the wedding goes on, the reception, then they got the lower grade stuff. You know what I'm saying? Now, by the time the wedding is wrapping up, the reception is wrapping up, they're serving Carlo Rossi. You said they had Carlo Rossi in the first century? Probably not Carlo Rossi, but stuff like that. And why would they serve the cheap stuff later on? They say it in the Bible because you don't notice it's cheap. You've been drinking for hours. You don't notice it's cheaper, and secondly, you don't care because you're well deep into the drinking thing. So they can get away with serving the cheap stuff because you're so inebriated, you don't realize it's like really low grade wine. But they were impressed because they said, "Look at this guy. He served the best wine at the end of the reception." They couldn't get over it because Jesus, God the Son, God makes the best, right? So he made the best wine on earth. So they couldn't get over it. So that would destroy the Protestant argument that it was just grape juice. I mean, it could have been low alcohol wine. You could have really good 7% wine. I mean, I'm not saying it was 20, 20 ounces and 20% alcohol. It wasn't MI 2020 ME 2020. It wasn't Middle East 2020. But you get my drift. So that was the problem with a lot of the Protestant ideology arguments when I was Protestant, that they would not look at things in the proper context. And that's why I would get into disputes. Like at Sunday school, I'd say, "Well, wait, you're just blatantly overlooking things that don't fit with what you're teaching. And then the things that you don't want to overlook, you twist them to fit what you're saying." And they would get angry. I would say, "No, I mean, this is not the way it's supposed to work." And of course, I couldn't stay with that. I can't deal with those kind of like inconsistencies, Thus, modern beer brewing, our current lowest alcohol drink would be considered a strong drink from the New Testament. I mean, I don't know that. That's just people saying that. I don't think they were drinking near beer. I don't think they had the Roman Empire O'Douls, because all the scriptures talk about alcoholics, wine, bibbers, drunkards. Well, they're not going to get drunk off of, near beer, all right, and table wine at 3%. So it doesn't seem to be the case. Hey, Ron, it was nice talking to you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning, the rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Y'all too. I'm out of here. So anyway, nothing remarkable. Is 75 South a good whiskey? I would say it's serviceable. It fits what it's supposed to do perfectly. What is it supposed to be? A very cheap store brand, table, bottom shelf, cheapo that won't make you gag, and it works fine. Gran Legacy is the same thing, except it actually has some flavor that's not actually bad. It has some interesting caramel flavoring. It's okay, it's all right. You're not going to serve it at a wedding. You might serve it at a Mardi Gras parade party because people are shopping cut off shorts, a t-shirt, because a lot of times it's warm during Mardi Gras. Sometimes it's cold. And they don't care. But I mean, a wedding, you want to try to keep things looking at least decent. You're going to serve whiskey. You're going to have it at a, I've been to weddings. You've been to weddings. They're going to have Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, something like that. Something with some credibility to it. Might even have Evan Williams, although that's getting a little. Although you'll notice that the wine, they always use like really cheap wine. Like if you go to a football game and say, I want to get some wine, it'd be like $7 for a 12 ounce, no, like 8-ounce wine. $7. And it's stuff like Behringer and Sutter Home. I say, whoa, you could buy a whole bottle for $6.92 at Walmart. And I see these women, usually women. I like women. I'm much more interested in women than I like to talk to men. But I mean, women. They hold my interest if you can follow my thinking. But I see them, and they drinking the wine, and they're so happy. And I'm thinking, golly, you paid $7 for 8 ounces of Behringer. Of course, they made their husband buy it, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, thanks for watching this video production. You said, I bet it's Chardonnay that they're drinking. I bet it's Chardonnay. Yeah, it might be. Might be Chardonnay.